Zoom. Hello, everybody. This is Luis Maya, and we are back here with our course, The Behavioral Economics of Global Affairs. This is UFRPE, and we are struggling still with this pandemic. We are on 2021, second semester, but hopefully we are all going to be back to school, back to Segoy, and to see each other and to be closer in a sense pretty soon, probably in the next few semesters, okay? Uh, as always, I always start my classes talking about this, but then again, as always, I'm very glad to be here. I think it is a privilege for me to teach in English in Brazil and to help out the students who may not be as fluent in English as they would like, but still they are trying. You guys are trying. You guys are working on your English. This is very, very nice. I'm glad to be part of that effort. Okay? All right. So today, as always, again, we're going to be talking about some very, very interesting issues. Now we're gonna address some very, very hard and important problems. We are going to talk about extreme poverty. Now, we know that there are some places in the world far worse than Brazil, okay? Unfortunately, we still have some regions of this globe, this planet, in which people struggle just to survive, and they live in conditions that are similar to the ones we have experienced hundreds of years ago. All right, so we are not going that far. We are going to be talking about poverty mostly in cities or in the suburbs, the region just next to big cities. Those are the places where we can find people in very hard conditions, living in very hard conditions. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how to address that problem. What sort of public policies we can create in order to help people out. And we are going to be discussing this in a moment in Brazil, where people are again talking about solving poverty problems with just the financial decision. So we are giving people money. It's all we talk about in Brasilia right now. Okay, I like Bolsa Familia. I think this is a very good program. It has been very successful, and somehow it has been copied by many other countries in the world. So it seems to be a good way to go. But there is just so much that money can afford. Sometimes people have problems that go beyond their purchasing power. And we're going to be talking about those things here today, okay? So again, I'm not here trying to say that I'm in favor of or against the new Bolsonaro program, okay? Auxílio Brasil, Brasil Verde Amarelo, I don't know what the name these guys are choosing. I'm not here to position myself against or in support of those programs. What I'm trying to say here is that poverty is a much, much more complex situation, much more complex issue. And in order to create intelligent policies, we're going to try and use behavioral economics, okay? This has been happening all over the world right now. And I have good news for you. You're going to see that some very interesting successes are starting to show up. Okay? Any questions before we start? Please raise your hand or raise your thumbs up so I can see that you guys are good to go. Elvídio, Davi, Chico. Thanks, Chico. Elvídio is probably looking for the...
Let's go, teacher.
All right, thanks, Davi. Elvídio, good to go?
Okay, teacher.
Thank you, guys. All right. So I'm going to share with you here some material. The class notes are already available in our WhatsApp group. You guys have downloaded, right? I hope you did. And please confirm to me that you can see now this blue and purple screen in front of you. Can you?
Yes, I can see.
All right, great. Now I have to ask one more question. Please tell me if you can see now the full screen version of it, or if it is still the slides.
No, I can see the full screen.
The full screen version. Thank you very much. All right, so, okay, this is not news in Brazil. We have a very large share of our population below the poverty line. What is that supposed to mean? Well, we have people, lots and lots of people living with less than $1 a day. If you think about it, what is it? Well, $1 is about 6 reais. And if you say 6 reais per day in a 30-day month, that is about 180 reais. 180 reais per month. Okay? So this is a kind of an international standard to say that people are extremely poor if they don't get at least $1 a day as basic income. Okay? All right. But poverty in Brazil is not only lack of money. And when I show you a picture like this, you can easily recognize Brazilian cities, right? You can see right away. You say, yeah, this could be in Brasilia. This could be in Brasilia. It's true. It could be in São Paulo. It could be here in Recife. It could be in Belo Horizonte or even in Florianópolis. Okay? This is like a Brazilian standard view. You see lots and lots of people living under very poor conditions. Most of them living in places that are very risky. So this kind of construction, this kind of buildings, they all the time they fall down. All the time you have small disasters. You have like fires killing dozens, maybe hundreds of people. So we have disasters happening all the time in Brazil. This is as frequent, this is so frequent that sometimes we don't even realize it is there. So if
Teacher,
you keep,
sorry.
sure, go ahead.
I can see only the first slide. And
Oh,
I don't know if it's...
what about now?
Now you change.
Yeah, let me stop sharing. Let me do something here. I will fix it. Just a minute.
All right.
I will stop share now. Then I will create this larger picture. Okay, now I'm gonna start sharing the big picture. All right. Let's see. Davi, can you see now the picture of a favela in Brazil?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, just to make sure, can you see now the picture changing to a diagram?
Okay, yes.
Okay, all right. So now we are good to go. Thank you so much. I hate when these things happen and people don't tell me. And I'm gonna realize later, like half an hour later, that you guys are not seeing the same thing that I am seeing. Thank you so much.
Don't worry.
All right. So if you see a picture like this, it could be Recife, it could be Belo Horizonte, or it could be Goiânia, right? So people living in favelas, people don't have, uh, they are exposed to risks and to violence very often. So when you think about these living conditions from a behavior economics perspective, you have to realize that sometimes these people, they are not as prepared to make good decisions as someone who have been sleeping in a very nice bed under a good roof and eating well. So from a behavior economics perspective, we have to look at decision making of poor people. And if we do so, we are going to realize that many times we expect from these people much more than we ourselves would be able to deliver if we were there, right? So it's like unfair expectations about what people can do when they live in such and such conditions, okay? So this is one of the big messages of our talk today. And it's good to remember this is not one city in Brazil. This is a common feature of Brazilian cities. You have a belt of excluded people around all, all the big cities. Todas as grandes cidades no Brasil, você tem um cinturão de pessoas excluídas. And we have to remember that. These are the people we are trying to help if we think about public policy in Brazil, all right? So let's try and think in a smart way and using behavior economics for that. The standard interpretation that we all have, and it is not like a wrong interpretation, but it's simplistic, goes like this. People go hungry, they have poor health and living conditions, they don't get to educate themselves enough, so they cannot reach for opportunities, job opportunities. The actual set of opportunities that they have is much smaller than what we think it is, okay? O conjunto de oportunidades que essas pessoas têm é, na verdade, muito mais restrito do que a gente pensa que ele é. It's easy for us to see a guy on the streets, you know, in the stoplights, asking for money and say, I'm poor, I'm hungry. Sometimes we see these people and we say, oh, come on, go get a job. Às vezes a gente está passando num sinal, a gente vê essas pessoas com a plaquinha dizendo, eu estou com fome, eu sou pobre, me ajuda. E para a gente, às vezes, é quase normal pensar assim, ah, vai arrumar um trabalho. Tem tanta gente aí batalhando, por que você não vai também? So, it is easy to go to this conclusion, but it's much harder to understand that the set of possibilities of these people is much smaller than what we think it is. O conjunto de possibilidades que essas pessoas de fato têm é muito menor do que a gente pensa que é. All right, so they lack opportunity and they end up having low income. Because they have low income, we should just understand why they go hungry, why they live in poor health and living conditions, why they end up not investing in education, and then they lack opportunity. So it is like a cycle, a vicious cycle of poverty reproduction, okay? um ciclo vicioso de reprodução da pobreza. All right, if you look at this, and if you look at this from the perspective of Brasilia today, right now, people say, let's raise people income. Vamos aumentar a renda das famílias. It's over. All the problems are gone. Okay, so what I'm going to try to say here is that even though raising people's incomes this is not a bad idea, this will not solve our problems. Okay? This will alleviate the risks and the problems, but it will not solve it. Okay? It is not like this, unfortunately. If it were, I was one to say, let's get money and just give people this money. Okay? So let's have a look why this is happening and what we can learn from previous experience. Now, the first thing I want to show you is that poverty is a problem that it is actually discussed even in developed countries. So what you have here is a video. It's a film, kind of a Hollywood film. I will not say it is a Hollywood film, but it's just like, okay? So this is a story, it's a plot. It is not a documentary, okay? It looks like, but it's not a documentary. And it's called I, Daniel Blake. So, eu, Daniel Blake. It is like eu, Zé Ninguém. Eu, João da Silva, okay? It is just like this. This is a film which was produced in 2016. You have this actor, this guy is a British actor, and he's talking about how a person, even in a developed country, can be reached by some kind of bad events, and they can have their income dropping, and they all of a sudden they are out of the system. And once you are out of the system, going back, getting a job again, reinstating yourself in the economic tissue of society may be very hard. Okay, so here you have a film talking about poverty in a rich country. And it turns out that this film was extremely successful. Esse filme teve enorme impacto, virou objeto de discussão em todos os cantos do planeta. I wanted to ask you here, has any of you ever heard about this film? Elvídio, Davi, Chico, algum de vocês alguma vez já ouviu falar desse filme? I, Daniel Blake. Eu, Daniel Blake.
No, teacher.
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay, yeah. It is interesting because, I mean, this thing is even in Telecine and Netflix. I'm not sure if it is on Netflix, but it is something that we show in Brazilian TV too, okay? So this film is very, very interesting, and we are going to have a look at it, okay? I'm going to try and find a link for you. I know that many people upload this film in not so much legal conditions, but they deliver, they share this film because they think that the message is very important, okay? So what you can see here is a picture of YouTube. And sometimes people go there and say, oh, drop it. You cannot post this here, and it disappears. A couple of weeks later, it shows up again. So I'm gonna try and find one of those links so you guys can have a look. But it is even translated to Portuguese. It is available in Portuguese too, okay? So in a bit, we're going to talk about this. But before we do so, let's just have a very quick reminder of what we have discussed so far. Okay? Very quick. It's not going to take more than a couple of minutes. First, we discussed individual behavior. We talked about bounded rationality. Remember, our brains are not as fast and cannot hold as much information as we would like. We have processing limitations, right? We are this incredible machine, but sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we can be overloaded of information. All right. We also talk about prospect theory. And in that respect, I remember telling you how we make very poor decisions regarding probabilities, how we evaluate small probabilities as if they were larger than they actually are, how we are risk averse when we're talking about gains, but we are risk lovers when we're talking about losses. And we talked about cognitive biases, heuristics, regrinhas de bolso, regrinhas de decisão, and we discussed a little bit persuasion too, persuasão. All right. Then we move to talk about organizational behavior. Sometimes people together in a company or in many different kinds of organizations, they adopt patterns of behavior from that organization. Então, algumas vezes pessoas adotam comportamentos típicos da sua organização. As they leave out the door, they become already the same person. But once they are inside, they adopt, they conform to a certain pattern of behavior. Okay? All right. And then we talk a little bit about social behavior, how we have social pressure, how we discuss prejudice and discrimination. We talked a little bit about peer pressure, strong context. Remember when we have like this situation in which we look at other people when we feel like embarrassed to admit something? Us versus them behavior, and lots of stuff when we talk about social behavior, right? Okay, so we have talked about 3 spheres, 3 levels of behaviors, and in our daily lives, we experience all of them, right? Nas nossas vidas, a gente navega por aspectos do comportamento individual, do comportamento organizacional e algumas vezes de comportamento social. Somehow we have to navigate all of these rules, all of these expectations, self-expectations or other people's expectations, and we go about our lives, right? Okay, so here comes this film and say, all right, people say that poverty is a problem in poor countries. We are going to try and say that poverty is a more complex issue and it is present even in rich countries. So the film tells us a story about this guy who is forced to retire because he had a heart attack. So he had a relatively good job. He didn't make lots of money, but he was stable there. He had some technology. He used some machines and he did well. He liked other people. He moved on with his life and everything seemed to be good in a past, something that happened before the heart attack. Once he has the heart attack, he becomes one person that cannot go back to work, but cannot remain forever just receiving money from the government. Então, esse cara entra numa lacuna da sociedade, em que ele não pode voltar a trabalhar, ninguém tem coragem de empregá-lo, porque se ele morrer vai ter que pagar indenizações. No entanto, ele não pode ficar o tempo todo recebendo benefícios sociais. Então, ele entra numa lacuna dos serviços sociais. So as he drops his economic status, his social status, he start trying to negotiate with the system. Ele começa a tentar negociar com o sistema político, social, burocrático, econômico, and he's a reasonable guy. He's not, like a rebellion, a rebel or something like this. So he's trying to move on with his life. He has relatively good support from community. He has neighbors, friends, and he goes on with his life. Here and there, he starts to notice more people struggling. Maybe because he was experiencing himself those struggles, he becomes more sensitive to what is happening to others. Então esse cara começa a entrar numa espécie de percepção de gente passando por dificuldade. Ele fica mais sensível, mais atento a ver o que está acontecendo na comunidade dele. Alright, when he reaches for social support from the government, then it becomes evident that he is facing the opposite of nudge. What is the opposite of nudge that we have studied here? Qual que é o oposto do empurrãozinho, pessoal? What's the English word?
This is sludge.
Sludge. Perfect. Thank you, Elvidio. Sludge, we could translate something like lama, barreira, embarreiramento, obstáculo, something like this, right? So sludge, actually, if you think about physical sludge, is what you have inside tubes, inside the hydraulic parts of your house. Então, sludge é aquele material que se acumula no encanamento das casas, né, com o passar dos anos e tal, e que entope. Então, o nome que a gente dá para aquilo é sludge. Então, é uma espécie de um obstáculo, de uma lama, de uma barreira. All right. So, let's take a look at what he experiences trying to negotiate with the system. First, he doesn't go to a public agency. He goes to a private company who was hired to provide public services. Então, eles têm uma agência terceirizada para lidar com os pobres. Okay, in itself, it is not a problem, as long as it works, right? Então, você ter uma agência terceirizada para cuidar dos pobres, por si só, não é problema algum. Pode ser até mais barato, pode ser até que funcione melhor, desde que funcione. But it turns out that these guys, as private companies, they have a very specific contract telling them who they can help and who they should not help. Como esses caras são agências privadas, contratadas pelo setor público, lá eles têm um contrato muito claro dizendo quem que eles podem ajudar e quem que eles devem não ajudar. So sometimes they have like holding people on the phone for hours. Now, this is Brazil. Come on. Who has not gone through something like this in Brazil? Você liga para tentar resolver um problema, a pessoa te coloca na linha de espera por 50 minutos, uma hora. Well, you can try right now. Try calling one of the air companies here, right? Uma das companhias aéreas aqui. You're going to hold it for hours if you try to get service. But it turns out that in the government in Brazil, sometimes you never get answered. Você pode ligar a vida inteira e nunca ter resposta se for uma agência pública no Brasil. All right. Now, we have this creature called the system. And the system is the registry where they have your name, they have your address, they have your condition. So once the guy calls, they say, "Hi, oh, okay, I see your registry here, Daniel Blake. Yeah, I know. So you still live at such and such and such?" And he says, "No, I don't live there for 10 years. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Please give me your current address." And then they update the address. Now, you're going to have to come here and you're going to have to show. Why do I have to go there? I'm talking to you here. Why don't you ask me what you need to know? Oh, no, you have to be here. So they start asking, demanding all these things, all these papers. Oh, you have to show up for that. You have to try that out. And the guy has this feeling that people are not trying to help him. Então ele começa a ter aquela sensação de que aquilo tudo não foi feito para ajudá-lo. And when you have like digital technology, it is an additional obstacle. Quando tem as soluções digitais, para ele aquilo é um desafio a mais. Ele não tem computador em casa, ele não sabe usar computador, não tem internet. É um cara mais velho. Tudo bem que é 2016, nós estamos em 2021, mas vocês conhecem pessoas que têm dificuldade com a internet. Tem gente que ainda quer fazer curso de internet. All right, so the guy faces a very hard time. His family is hit by this financial crisis. He understands people going into this spiral of hardship. É como uma espiral de problemas. And difficulties abound. And he has this understanding that things are getting harder because of the country competition with China and globalization. Ele tem essa visão meio difusa de que o problema todo tem a ver com o país dele lutando, com a competição com a China, com as empresas fechando aqui, indo operar em outros lugares e tal. But this is not the main topic, okay? So, at some point, the guy just have a second heart attack. When he has the second heart attack, and then it's like something that you could expect, you know? It was just before he was going to get listened to by a judge. He had this high expectation, and he just can't hold it. He has this second heart attack and dies. So the message is very hard. It tells you this could have happened to a friend or to a relative of yours. A mensagem para qualquer britânico é dizendo assim: o que aconteceu nesse filme pode muito bem acontecer com um bom amigo ou com um parente seu. This is not like a paranormal. This is not something out of this world. This is part of British life. So this thing was really, really strong. It had a huge impact. It became the subject of many discussions. Even the government had to sit down and say, look, this is true. It is happening. We have to fix this. And they had like lots and lots of initiatives trying to think this through. But we have known at this point that these guys had at the same time a different movement in British government, which was to incorporate behavioral economics into public policy. Então, mais ou menos na mesma época que o filme estava saindo, era o momento em que esse braço do governo britânico, ganhando mais musculatura, mais voz para poder dizer: a solução precisa ser fácil. We have to make solutions easy, convenient. We have to help people. We have to think through, think and think and think until we get the best protocol possible. We can't drop people out. We can't just say we tried. Então, essa mentalidade de que o governo precisa entregar resultado, que o governo tem obrigação não apenas de tentar ajudar, mas de ser efetivo na ajuda, era uma coisa que estava acontecendo em paralelo ao lançamento desse filme. So it is like a very interesting movement. On one hand, you see people raising, giving highlights to these scandals of everyday life. And on the other hand, you see more and more people in the government saying, we have to make a revolution. We have to change completely the way we do public services, the way we create and we share public policy. Now, let me open up here this parenthesis and talk a little bit about social learning theory, teoria da aprendizagem social. All right, this is just to open up this parenthesis, okay? I'm going to go back to behavior economics in a bit. When you say teoria da aprendizagem social, social learning theory, the origin of that was about violence. How people in a society, how people learn to become violent. And people who were studying this, they were concerned about TV. Eles estavam preocupados com os desenhos animados, os filmes que as crianças assistiam, muitos deles extremamente violentos, e eles temiam que aquilo pudesse ensinar as crianças a serem violentas. If you watch Pica-Pau, right, Woodpecker, if you watch Pica-Pau these days, you're gonna get amazed. Se você hoje liga a televisão nesses canais aí, TV, jornal, não sei o que, e assiste um ou dois episódios de Pica-Pau, vocês vão ver cenas de violência que são inacreditáveis. All right, so people were worried that violence could be learned just by observation. So they came with this social learning theory. And this theory was very influential, still is, and what it tells us that people can learn through observation. If they will incorporate that learning depends much on their mental states. Who is the model? Eles vão falar quem é que é o modelo para aquele comportamento, como que a pessoa está naquele momento que está observando. So there are many aspects that can help or prevent people from learning some behavior. And sometimes they will not incorporate what they learn as a behavior. Então, o aprendizado nem sempre gera mudança de comportamento. It is hard to make behavioral change. So, but why am I putting this thing here? Well, I want to reframe this driving question. Rather than think why people don't learn, we must ask what do people learn from poverty? How poverty impacts self-efficacy and collective efficacy. So let me rephrase this and explain to you. Ao invés de pensarmos apenas por que as pessoas não aprendem, a gente tem que pensar o que a pobreza ensina. Não é que elas não estão aprendendo o que deveriam para começar a trabalhar, ser prósperas e não depender da ajuda de ninguém. É que a pobreza ensina outras coisas. All right? So we change the perspective there. Now, we have to talk a little bit about self-efficacy and collective efficacy. So, again, still, we are on this parenthesis. A gente ainda está dentro desse parênteses, mas são dois conceitos muito legais. Self-efficacy, in português, autoeficácia, tells us if we are optimistic about doing something that we have never done. Se você seria otimista em fazer uma coisa que você nunca fez. So let's suppose that I ask you to come to my place and I say, I'm preparing stroganoff, can you help me out? eu estou preparando aqui um estrogonofe, você pode me ajudar? And let's say Davi tells me, Luis, I have never done such a thing. Eu nunca fiz isso. No problem. I'm going to tell you some stuff you're going to be trying. So, would you be optimistic to say, yeah, I think I can handle this? Or would you be like, no, it's not going to work. I'm not good at cooking. So, this thing that leads you to say, I can do it, that's what we call self-efficacy, okay? You trust that you can learn and perform some task in a good way. Você confia que você pode aprender e desenvolver uma tarefa com sucesso. All right, so you can see where I'm going with this, right? In poverty, sometimes you have very low self-efficacy. Entre os pobres, muitas vezes as pessoas estão sendo ensinadas que elas devem não tentar. Se elas tentarem, elas vão fracassar. All right, so this is the first thing. The second thing is collective efficacy. So, in Portuguese seria eficácia coletiva. In Portuguese, we have a very good say for this. It tells us, uma andorinha só não faz verão. So, sometimes people even want to do something good for the community, but they say, oh, forget it, nobody will follow me. Às vezes as pessoas até querem fazer alguma coisa boa para a comunidade. Às vezes falam assim, ah, esquece, ninguém vai me seguir, ninguém vai fazer junto comigo, vai ficar só eu lá de otário. Alright, so self-efficacy and collective efficacy. Autoeficácia e eficácia coletiva, comunitária. Those are extremely important if you want to change poverty, if you want to reverse poverty situation. Now, before I move on, can you guys see at this point how exactly giving money will not be a solution? A minha pergunta é assim, já desse ponto, não dá para perceber como que só dar dinheiro para as pessoas não vai resolver a pobreza? Can you guys see what I'm trying to say here? Please raise your hand, thumbs up there, or open up your mic. Dá para entender o vídeo?
Dá para entender, Maia, mas assim, a coisa não é tão simples, né?
Não.
Você não consegue tirar milhões de pessoas da pobreza que não tem condições nenhuma, sem você dar um mínimo inicialmente e capacitá-las para que elas possam seguir em frente sozinhas. Né?
Exato. Não basta a gente dar o dinheiro, cara. Eu não estou dizendo que não dê, eu quero que dê. Eu sou a favor que dê, eu sou a favor de renda mínima universal, sou a favor que 30 milhões de pessoas no Brasil, não apenas esses 17, 20 que eles vão dar, eu sou a favor de que 30 milhões de pessoas no Brasil recebessem uma renda mínima. Sou a favor de que o Brasil falasse assim, ninguém vai passar fome. Ninguém, 0 pessoas passando fome. Seja lá o que for. But the point is, giving money is, if most, it is just a good start. Se muito, dar dinheiro é apenas um bom começo. Se for muito. We have to understand that many of these people, they have been taught for years that they should not try. Essas pessoas foram ensinadas, treinadas, punidas todas as vezes que tentaram. So many of these people, they are actually traumatized. They get stigma, elas têm sequelas. And if you give money, right, people will not starve. Right, people will have a little bit of dignity. But that's not what we want. We want people out of poverty. We want autonomy, right? And then we have to think how hard we have made people's lives at this point. A gente tem que se dar conta o quanto que é difícil a vida dessas pessoas e a gente não faz isso. Go ahead, Elvídio. You're gonna make any comment.
Eu queria concordar porque, na realidade, a gente vive dois mundos no Brasil, né? A gente vive uma realidade nossa da classe média, né, que teve toda um apoio, uma condição que a gente possa estudar, que a gente possa se desenvolver, e tem outra realidade da comunidade pobre, né, que ela vem desde a colonização do país, né? Porque, na realidade, os pobres são os negros, os pobres são os pardos, né? Eles foram escravizados, foram subjugados, como você está dizendo. Então, tudo isso está na cabeça deles até hoje. Então, é difícil ter dignidade essas pessoas para ter autoestima, né? E poder se desenvolver sozinho, né? Então, falta políticas públicas para isso, realmente. E, na realidade, a gente sente que o governo ele não tem interesse nisso. Porque essas pessoas são fáceis de manipular. É uma massa de manobra muito fácil de manipular. Então, tem todas essas questões. E aí, a gente não se desenvolve como um país. Você pode se desenvolver individualmente, né, mas não como país, como sociedade. Esse é o grande problema que a gente vive hoje. O Brasil vive, não é? Essa questão de não conseguir.
Muito bons comentários, Elvídio. Davi, Chico, would you guys want to make any comments? Or we can go on. Okay. All right. So, guys, let me be straight about this, okay? Let me go straight to the point. Poverty can blunt the capacity of people to aspire and to take advantage of the opportunities that they do present themselves. A pobreza pode bloquear, impedir, retirar a capacidade das pessoas de desejarem, aspirarem coisas melhores e de aproveitarem as oportunidades que aparecem para elas. So, we have to think about the ways we can help people in those conditions. And you guys have heard them enough, but let me go again. There are three most important ways you can try and help. First, this is something that we have said here a million times. Simplify procedures. Simplify protocols. Make things convenient, easy, immediate, and open up the doors, the access to public policy. Primeira coisa é abre, facilita, ajuda para ser mais fácil, mais rápido, não ter fila, não ter espera. So, okay, the first thing is already like a huge change in Brazil. We don't do that. The second one, target assistance on the base of bandwidth. I'm going to have to explain this in a little bit more details in a few minutes, okay? So we're going to go back to this. Mirar a assistência com base nos momentos mentais que as pessoas estão preparadas, que é oportuno, que você consegue tocá-las, tá? A gente vai explicar isso um pouco mais. And the third one is try and reduce income volatility and improve infrastructure. Tenta reduzir a volatilidade de renda e melhorar a infraestrutura. All right, so we have seen examples all over Brazil of urbanizations in favelas, ok? Nós já vimos exemplos no Brasil inteiro do efeito que a urbanização de favelas tem. Quando você abre uma rua, quando você coloca iluminação pública, quando você leva água, monta uma escola, coloca um posto de saúde, obviously this will change completely the access of these people, right? So this is a good start. And some of it we see in Brazil. Not in all communities, especially in the Northeast, ok? Isso não acontece em todas as comunidades, e isso acontece menos frequentemente no Nordeste do que acontece no Sudeste e no Sul. Tá? Lá é muito comum você ter cidades entrando, governo de cidades entrando em comunidades para fazer obras de urbanização, fazer canalização de esgoto, para fazer chegar posto de saúde, para construir escola dentro da comunidade. We have some of this here, but not as much as we do have in the South, okay? All right, so the big message that we have here is like, whenever you try, you start some sort of intervention to fight poverty, you have to be prepared to fail and to learn. So, contrary to all that people in Brasilia want to do, you have to small, slowly and little. Ao contrário da lógica que funciona em Brasília, você tem que começar devagar e com pequenos testes. You have pilots, você tem os pilotos, você tem que fazer ações pilotos, você tem que começar pequenininho, colocar ali todas as condições que você imaginou que fossem funcionar, and you have to evaluate extremely carefully. Você tem que avaliar e aprender o máximo que você puder. O que funcionou, o que não funcionou, por que funcionou, e se eu mudar isso, e se eu mudar aquilo. As you do that, you're going to get information to operate in a larger scale, but in a second generation of intervention. So, interventions should evolve a long time. As intervenções deveriam desenvolver-se, mudar, aprender conforme o tempo passa. And that's not what we see in Brazil. Não é isso que a gente vê no Brasil. A gente não aprende. A gente faz algumas coisas que dão certo, faz outras coisas que dão errado, e a gente repete os erros em todo lugar do Brasil, diariamente. A gente continua repetindo erros, a gente faz intervenções que não funcionam, ou que funcionam apenas parcialmente, and we don't learn. We don't want to learn. We don't want to evaluate. I think that some of the explanation to why we don't learn, some of it is because we think that evaluation is punishment. A gente tem essa visão de que avaliar é uma postura punitiva. Avaliou, deu errado, você tem que pagar. Você tem que responder, você vai para a cadeia. If we have this perspective, you will never learn. If you adopt this punitive approach to evaluation, you end up repeating your mistakes forever. Does that sound like Brazil? I don't know about you guys, but this is pretty much what I think Brazil is. We keep repeating mistakes indefinitely, and we don't want to learn. We think that evaluation is punishment. So nobody wants to evaluate. If you do, people will hate you. People will retaliate. People will be defensive. They will not trust you. I don't know about you, but these things make very much sense to me when I think about Brazil and our problems. Now, let me give you an example here, just for those of you who think that I'm still a dreamer. Oh, come on, Luis, you are a dreamer. You believe in anything. Okay, let me give you this. This is water chlorination. Now, these guys have tried and create water treatment for very poor communities. Pessoal, esse exemplo aqui é um exemplo de tratamento de água. É um estudo de caso em um país extremamente pobre da África, tá? Now, check these things out. You have many possibilities and you have all the obstacles. So, first, you give people free bottles delivered at home. What are those bottles? Well, they have the exact quantity of chlorine that you have to use for your house. Eles têm lá uma espécie de uma mistura de cloro com água na proporção certa para você usar. They have discount coupons so you can buy this product in a local shop. Eles ofereceram voucher para você comprar esse produto numa loja local. They give you detailed instruction how to use. So each of those are aspects of one intervention. They have to improve storage. They said, look, we have to have good bottles when we have to teach people how to store these things because they can be dangerous. Então a gente tem que melhorar a segurança das garrafas, ensinar as pessoas a manusear para não ter acidente. They use persuasion messages. So they had like outdoors, they had people coming in cars with the speakers saying, please don't forget to treat your water. You have to do once a month or something like this. They also had social workers coming and trying to promote and teach people in different houses, getting neighbors together to help one another, to create a social network. And they even had chlorine dispenser at point of collection. They said, okay, nós vamos entregar para vocês esse produto nos pontos, em pontos de acesso da comunidade. So when they had all these possibilities, all these aspects of water chlorination, they started collecting evidence of why people wouldn't acquire the behavior. Eles começaram a colecionar evidências sobre como e por que as pessoas não estavam agindo. So you had procrastinations, you had people not understanding, we have the product being too expensive. For each of those problems, they came up with solutions. So they end up having like a set of solutions. A intervenção acabou sendo um conjunto de 7, 8 soluções interligadas. It was not in people's mind when they started. Essas soluções não estavam na cabeça das pessoas quando elas começaram. Elas tiveram que errar, aprender. Errar novamente, tentar diferente. Fazer entrevista, conversar com as pessoas. Por que não está dando certo? Como que vai dar certo? All right, so what we're trying to say here is that you have to learn. If you want to fight poverty, you have to learn to fight poverty. And to learn, you're going to have to make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. If you don't do that, you're going to spend the rest of your life and the rest of your money trying to have an impact without success. Você pode passar o resto da sua vida e pode gastar todo o dinheiro do mundo sem conseguir ter o impacto e sem conseguir ter o sucesso que você deseja. Well, guys, I'm well advanced here in time. I think I'm gonna stop from now and give you guys some space to make comments, questions, suggestions, and the rest of the subjects on this topic, I will probably record a short video for you by Monday or something like this. What do you say? Chico, Davi, Elvídio, sounds good? Parece uma boa solução? A gente está meio apertado aqui de horário. Aí eu queria parar agora e oferecer a opção de terminar os 4 ou 5 slides que faltam em um vídeo adicional que eu coloco lá para vocês.
Okay, teacher.
Okay, teacher, could be. Only to register. If you invite me to cook something, I will try. Don't worry.
All right, this is good. Very good idea, Davi. I'm glad to hear that. I'm pretty sure you guys would, all of you here, because it takes an attitude to go on with this class. Eu sei que vocês fariam, vocês são caras que são muito atentos à autoeficácia, porque para concluir, né, para seguir com essa nossa disciplina, tem que ter uma atitude, tem que ter um otimismo de tentar e aprender coisa nova. So you guys are special in that respect. You have self-efficacy. A autoeficácia tá forte aqui nesse nosso grupo. Legal? Obrigado,
Thank
então,
you,
pessoal.
teacher.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good Friday. Enjoy your weekend.
For you too, teacher. Bye.
Thanks, Davi. Bye-bye. Take care.
Boa noite. Bom final de semana.
Valeu, Chico. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later.